Wow, what a beautiful group of people. I just want to welcome you here to the Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Las Vegas, a place where David had found a home, so to speak, a place where he could commune with that, whatever you want to call it, God, Spirit, universe, that was really inside of him. My name's Lynn Frankenberger. I'm the assistant to the minister here, and I knew David, and he made me laugh more than once. And, you know, it's like when John called me and showed up, and I've had this is like the second of 4 memorials this weekend, I went, oh, what the hell, why not? Stick him in. We're going to put him in it. We're going to make place because it's David. So we've all come here today, gathered to share and celebrate the memory of David. I called him David Big Heart Velinsky, because that is what I've heard, that is what I know, that is what I shared with him personally, as well as so many of you here. For a time, he walked among us and he taught us about life in his own way and love. Now, we come together in this place to acknowledge his contribution to each of our lives and to find in our hearts peace with his passage. You can be certain a part of him is present here today within each of us. He's right here. He'll always be here. He's never gone. Yes, there may be some sadness in your heart, but you can come together today. We come together to move through those feelings and get to that core of love, which was the core of Dave. That appreciation you had for Dave, and to celebrate. We're here to celebrate his presence here on earth. We're here today as friends and loved ones to join together. We come from varied backgrounds, varied beliefs, to acknowledge your individual connections to him, to his spirit, to his light, to his love, because that is the truth of who he truly is. So when I was talking to John and going on David's Facebook and figuring out a few things to try to say about him, it was like, well, I'm going to throw in a few things that I knew about him and a few things that John told me about him and a few things that I just pretty much guess about him because it's who he is. So quickly, I'm just going to say a little bit of a eulogy and then we're going to have some fun. David Velinsky was born on January 2nd, 1961. Yes, for some reason, he decided to come into this plane after New Year's Eve, because as it is, David, even then, was generous enough to let everybody party the night before. He was that type of guy that was, you know, I'm loving and generous and fun, so even before he could speak, he let everybody have fun. Because he knew once he came onto this plane, it was going to be a whole different story. He was going to be that one that loved, that spoke, that had fun, that was generous. When David decided he was going to sell timeshares, I thought to myself, isn't that ironic? It's ironic that he was going to sell timeshares. Something that he picked that he is amazing at, sharing his time and his love. Timeshare, share time. That's David. You know, and in that, he was something to behold, what I heard when he was selling. Everything from his Sir Madam to lying on the floor, pitching the best way he knew, through fun, through laughter, through joy. He was quite a salesman. He could, and he almost did one day, and I pretty much bet everybody in this room would agree with me, he could convince you to buy your own shoes. Right off your own feet. That's how fun, that's how amazing he was with his generosity and his humor. And no matter What? When David walked in a room, it was like a big bright light came on. He illumined every room he entered. Being the free spirit that he always is, he showed up, and it soared, especially in the outdoors. He loved being in nature. Going to Mount Charleston, playing tennis. Now, they told me he loved ice skating, and I said, seriously, David? You're in Vegas, you'd have to desert skate. That's about, what you could do here, although we do have an ice rink. But his love of the outdoors and just being in that nature, in that place, was so deep and so heartfelt for him. Anyway, his wit and his nature captured that of what a few people said was Rodney Dangerfield. He was like a Rodney Dangerfield incarnate. And of course, right down to the eyes, even his eyes, those beautiful, bulgy eyes, those big eyes that every time he laughed got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was just an amazing thing to see. And not only were his eyes big when he laughed and carried on, they also got bigger when he shared and when he ate. Because I can tell you, yes, he liked to eat. How many times do you think one man can go to a buffet? Seriously. The reality of it is, they say, oh, David had a hollow leg. I think he had two. Two hollow legs, because you know what John said? He said the last time they were out, and he hit that buffet like 5 times. I said, seriously? Yeah, definitely. He had 2 hollow legs. So David loved having fun, and I was blessed to spend some time here with him. When he came to his beloved Center for Spiritual Living, he told me at one time when I was talking to him that he had found a place where there was no judgment, no condemnation, only the love that is shared so freely, the love that he could share so freely in his life, the joy that he could share so freely in his life. He could now feel that he wasn't being judged, that everyone around him embraced him. And this is the truth. This is the truth of all of you here. The embracing, the loving, the joy that was shared and always shared with David. Now I can continue going on and talking about David, the man with the big heart, but I had a couple photos sent to me. So I thought we'd put a couple photos up there and talk a little bit about these photos. Okay, there's David. He changed that to his Facebook post. Really? Seriously, David? We can all see that smirk. He tried to be serious, but if you look very closely, you see that little smirk on the side of his face. And those thoughts running through his head of, how can I really hold this and not make a face, not do something different, not laugh, not say something, but just kind of be still and take this picture. So that would be serious David. Really not, but that's David. So on to the next one. Yep, I'm working. You all take this stuff too seriously. He's sitting there like, hey, I know how to do this stuff. What are y'all worried about? You just get on the floor and you say, Sir, Madam, and it's all over. He just, that's Dave. He was just sitting there doing what he did always, laughing and making sure that life was never taken too seriously. Because sometimes we take it too seriously, and he knew that he was able to sell anything and not to take it seriously. And of course, we have this last picture. And here was his love. His true love. David, being the big kid that he truly is, loved kids. He loved being around family. He loved being around all of you. He loved sharing this life this way. And that's David, the big kid that just was a big kid, always.
I think he was practicing while I wasn't looking or something, but I think he was ready to go, and he was ready to take me out, and he did. He took me out big time. We played tennis a lot, and we were like two kids out there having a great time. Like your best friend, you know. Dave always kind of came across that way, you know, like he was your best buddy, you know. And he was just honest, and he was truthful, and he just told it like it was, and there was a really endearing quality about David that I just loved, and I loved to be around him. We'd also go hiking together. And he was a nut. He's just a nut. I mean, just to just spend like a half hour or 45 or to an hour or even a couple hours with Dave, boy, you got a lot. I mean, you got a lot of information that you maybe didn't want to hear. You laughed a lot. You know what I mean? You know, and it was, and you know, and really, what you really got, and what you really saw was, yeah, we all know that Dave went to extremes in so many ways, but what you really saw was the extreme way that he loved and he cared about people and how sincere he was. You know what I mean? That was a really nice thing about him. And I'm grateful and blessed to have that in my life, to have had that in my life. We would go skiing on Mount Charleston, and we all know about that. Well, at least a few of us. Brian, Matt Hamilton, a few other fellas, like we'd go up skiing on Mount Charleston, and this is just kind of, it's fun, but I mean, Dave he did everything he could to knock us down. And we'd be skiing along, and Dave would come in and give us one of these and try to knock us over while we were skiing, and of course, Brian and I were all about that. We're like, okay, you want to play that way? Okay, you got it. But it was just fun. And just kids up on the hill, man, having a good time. And like I said, Dave went to extremes in a lot of different ways, but the one thing that stands out most to me is just how loving he was and how caring he was, and really how honest and truthful he was about life.
Brian, come on up. This was a last-minute thing. I already had it done. Sorry.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Connors. This is really a great event. I'm so honored to be here. I've known Dave a long time. I've known Dave since 1974. Yeah, I'm from New Jersey, and I went to college. I went to Rutgers with Dave's half-brother, and I promised to read something from his half-brother. When I was way back then, I would see Dave, but when Dave was about 25, we had something in common. We all know Dave was in 12-step programs. I'm not in the beverage program, but I'm in the Al-Anon program. And my sister died from alcohol and drugs, and I grew up in the same room with my brother, who was a drug addict and alcoholic. I'm happy to say he has 40 years sobriety today. But you're right about wanting to be Farley and things like that. He had show business all over him. And I am an actor, and Dave used to come to my plays in New York. And then I started writing, and I wrote about my family, and I wrote about my sister's death and my sister's suicide. He was very moved by it. And we were in the West Village in a small theater, like a 100-seat theater. And Dave, at that point, I don't know if you guys didn't know Dave back then, he was a multimillionaire. He went from rags to riches, back to, I wouldn't say rags, but became a multimillionaire from very humble beginnings and only a high school education. And when he saw that my sister had took her own life, he said, I want you to write my play, my story, my movie. I said, really? He was the first guy to ever hire me to write a script. And we did. It was called King Baby, and we made a short film. It's on kingbabymovie.com, and it's going to be in a film festival here, thanks to Warren Durso, who's back there, in a film festival. Thank you, Warren. It's going to be in a film festival in Las Vegas and also in Jersey, and may go all around, who knows. And there is a screenplay about his life. But this is from his brother, who I went to Rutgers with. It starts off with, whew, where do I begin? There was a time quite a few years ago when David and I were very close. Though we were half-brothers, I can't imagine having had a better relationship if our mothers were the same person. Before things began to spiral out of control for him, we had too many great times to possibly recount here. I will try to relate a few. Before that, however, I want to take some time to remember the kind of person, brother, he was. I introduced David to a countless number of my friends from high school and college and my professional life, and every one of them found it to be engaging, gregarious, caring, loving, and considerate. And almost more important to me, funny. David had an infectious sense of humor. Anyone who ever knew him will tell you that. Laughter was his stock in trade. This is why he could sell ice to the Eskimos. Now to a few of the good times. When I was in graduate school in Los Angeles, he came to live with me in a rented room. That's right, room. We took turns night by night, sleeping on the couch or the floor. To make matters more interesting, he invited one of his friends, Mark Warnes, to come out and share the room. This provided a redefinition of brotherhood. When he was living in Asbury Park, New Jersey, he used to get pizza at our favorite spot. The pies were delicious, and when he would go to pick one up, he would order a second one to eat on the drive home. So many things you guys are saying here today go way back. And the dancing, I've seen David dance too. That was David. Once in New York, he came to visit me while I was tending bar. Within 15 minutes, he had charmed the entire room and was holding hilarious court. This is who he was. I so regret that we became estranged, and I am so sorry that his marriage and relationship with his sons, and for that matter, with his nephews, the two boys he adopted after the death of his sister, ended in such a sorry state. But even that does not diminish for a moment his legacy or his memory. David was a special person. I have missed him for 15 years. Now I will miss him more. May he rest in peace. So, one other thing, I want to keep it short, but I also wrote a eulogy to David. Some of you got it in an email, so I won't repeat that. But if you want to see it, Brian Lepore has it. And his ex-wife, who went through hell, called me. She was the one that gave me the news, because David might have gone as a John Doe or something. You know, it's a miracle that this is happening, and I'm so glad it's happening, because he would disappear and people would be out of touch. A lot of people in New Jersey just wouldn't have known what would have happened. But when David hired me to write the screenplay, and then he started to tell, because he was living a Jekyll Hyde life. He was in a suit, he was making millions of dollars a year. I was in his home. He had a home on 6 acres a mile from the ocean in Spring Lake on Wall. And it was like, it would be like you were in the back of a New Hampshire pond or lake. It was the most beautiful house in New Jersey, just about. You couldn't see the other houses on the lake. And I would swim in this lake from May to October. And he was so generous and loving to his nephews. And when I was in Rutgers, I'd see him, when I was 25, I'd see him with taking these boys all around all the time, these two little boys. And I'm going, I didn't want to ask, I didn't know. I knew they weren't his kids. But when his sister died at 25, he took his sister's kids and raised them. Braces, schools. This is a man with just a high school education. How do you do that? You know, I've watched my sister's kids for a weekend and been exhausted. He took them on forever. And he had 2 kids of his own, and there's more stories there too. We'll wait for the screenplay. But when I was writing his story, he wasn't happy with it at first. He said, Brian, no, I don't want to do that. Don't write about that. Don't write about that. I said, what do you mean? He didn't want me to write about his sister dying of AIDS. He didn't want me to write about the nephews. And believe me, he was I used to fight with him. And you know how tenacious he could be. I said, David, this is the most generous and unselfish thing you ever did in your life. Other people can't say that. And I said, we're going to write about this. This is in. So it is. And the other thing, too, it's a little crazy, but I guess after Straight Outta Compton being, a lot of people, when they say, you know, gosh, I always, you know, I hit a home run in Yankee Stadium, or I won the World Series. And they pride themselves on that. One time, David looked me in the eye and said, Brian, he said, you know, there's not a lot of people that can say this, but, you know, I've kicked a cop in the balls, and not a lot of people. He was nuts. He was crazy.